Jones, 205 pounds. Could it happen again? Is it possible? Is it likely? Is it probable? It's interesting at a minimum. It's very interesting. Now, I have been on board with this experiment from Jump Street to see somebody later in their life walk away from the world championship to pursue the world championship. Now, it's not apples to apples. At some point, you want to do something else, you want to prove something else, you want to be challenged in a different way. Later in life, to take your oars out of the water, to stop competing, freeze your own contract, to try to change your physiology, to return, I'm in. Like, that's a really interesting story to me. I do wish, in all fairness, it happened a little bit faster, but I'm still on board. I'm not sold, and never was, that Jon leaving 205 to pursue heavyweight was only based on a goal or an experiment to see, can I do it? How far can I go? Like, that's a really good jumping off point. I do believe for a piece of the pie that certainly gets a slice of it. I've always believed, moreover, Jon believed, and I'm influenced here by Jon. This is just me sitting back making opinions. Jon has been very open to talk about his contract. He's been very open. The night he got into the Hall of Fame, which might be one of the last times he's ever done an interview, he's very open to talk about the escalations within his new contract and how important it is that the pay-per-view is viewed and watched. All right. My point being, I think a lot of Jon leaving, while the competitive side, while the experiment, while the challenge is all a piece of it, I also think that you have the business side. There was some really interesting matches as Jon saw it, and moreover, they couldn't be any less interesting. No matter what the matches were at heavyweight, they could not be less interesting than they had become at 205 pounds. And that was not Jon's fault. I mean, in all fairness, that was because of absolute domination and cleaning through a division and not having other guys rising up. I can't remember the last time that Jon had a fight at 205 pounds against somebody that said they wanted to fight Jon Jones. There was guys who became the number one contender. There was guys that accepted the fight. There was guys that got phone calls. There was guys that went as far as to say, I will want to fight for the championship. I don't remember somebody saying, I want to fight Jon Jones. Like, I just don't remember those words. So now, all of a sudden, Jon's in the driver's seat, and he's got a reluctant passenger. I mean, in all fairness, yeah, you got to leave. You got to get the hell away from those guys for whatever reason, but you do, and he did. Now, we're not there yet. And Jon's weight of the experiment is extremely relevant to my entire point of can he, will he, might he, is it probable, is it possible that he goes back to 205 pounds? Now his weight, 240. 240 pounds when you're lifting weights and drinking protein and purely trying to gain weight is not the same as being in a full training camp and still weighing 240. I suspect that he will be less, but let's just use that number because we can be fairly confident, knowing what we know about physiology, that it won't be more. Won't be more than 240. So let's just use that. Is 240 too big to go to 205 pounds? Real simple question. That would be on the bigger side, yes. There are 205 pounders that get to 230, that get to 232. It's very uncommon. Most of them are just south, just sitting there right around 225. So yes, 240 would be too big. To think that you could talk Jon, who just spent 2 years gaining size, to go and take that size back off, it might be tough. But I do bring you the conversation because 205 pounds is red hot right now. We've got up-and-comers. I think Rakic goes into the category of up-and-comer. I think Blachowicz tips on that. Maybe more of a veteran because he had the championship, but he did not cross paths with Jon. It's a whole new set and a whole new crew. Reyes, who was top of the division. Thiago Santos, who was top of the division. Gustafsson, who was top of the division. Cormier, who was top of the division. Back when Jon was in there, they're gone. They're either gone from the sport or they're gone from the rankings or gone from those opportunities. It's just the reality. Things have moved very quickly, but the guys that are in there are interesting. Like Prohaska, there's something about him that's interesting. The Rakic business that I just mentioned, not to mention if Rakic is to get over on Blachowicz, right? Come Monday morning, he's going to be a lot more interesting. Glover Teixeira has a fan base, not for nothing. If we're just talking about bringing people in, if we're just talking about people having an interest, Lionheart always is going to matter in that division. Ankalaev, who's about to face Lionheart. One of them is going to take a bump, but one of them is going to get extra shine. Like, 205 pounds is not only interesting right now, it's about to get more interesting. And I think I just threw out 4 or 5 names versus Jon Jones that you'd go, yeah, I would like to see that. Possibly more than you did for the last 4 or 5 people that Jon Jones fought. Now, let's just play that same game, and let's do it at heavyweight. Stipe Miocic, now you go. Now you go. Who do you got? Who do you got that you think would be a compelling match for Jon Jones? The most interesting match for Jon Jones. The absolute hardest and most interest is Curtis Blaydes, who absolutely nobody will, 1, even concede to what I just said, and 2, nobody else is saying until I just said it. But that is the most interesting. I don't think that's going to happen for the other reasons that I just stated. Nobody's discussing it. All right. That could change down the road. We can bring Curtis Blaydes, and I think you would have a real interest, particularly if we took time to spotlight where Curtis's strengths are, juxtapose this with Jon. You'd see that that's a fairly interesting match. The Stipe one, of course, works. The big one is Francis. And with Francis gone, it very much changes that division. I mean, Jon Jones going up and predominantly wanting to put on size before he went up, he had vision. He had goggles on. He's looking straight at Francis. Whether he said it or not, he absolutely was going to bed tonight. He absolutely was drinking those protein shakes. He's doing the pull-up with Francis in mind, for sure. There wasn't a whole lot of other people that we, the audience, believe that Jon would have a problem with at heavyweight, and that's when Jon weighed 220, 222, the weight that he would cut down to light heavyweight. We saw what the skills were. We know what the length is. Boom, put him in at heavyweight. He's going to be the guy. Well, unless Francis is too much man for. I mean, but this was one of the conversations. And I'm bringing it to you because if Jon does deal with Stipe and he wins, where does he go? But the same question is largely true. What if Jon gets beat? If Jon gets beat by Stipe, Jon's entire career, as it comes to business-wise, and Jon's ability to sell and garner interest will be much better. Contrary to popular belief, it will be much better. If there was an allure and an idea, and if we saw with our own eyes that a certain style and or technique, that would all come with Jon getting beat. But if we saw that with our own eyes, we could then begin to think that we have more opponents that could do it. But let's say that Jon goes out and he beats Stipe. Where do you go then? Go look at the top-ranked guys. Go look at the top. They're not bad matches, and these are not easy guys. I'm sharing with you that you have much fewer and you do have much less anticipation to see some of those matches, at least as of right now, than you would at 205 pounds. Is it possible? Is it possible that Jon went back? I think of all the words that I threw out, I threw possible, is there a probability, is it likely, and is it interesting? Of all of those words, I think it's pretty unlikely. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. Took 2 years off, changed his body, wants to go out and use that side, going to pursue the championship. To hell with it. You people don't come watch, but I can go build a legacy. I'm going to go do it. I go beat 4 or 5 guys up, and I think that they're easier guys than here. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. He's not wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong in this whole process. There's something wrong with that level of success, and I'm just bringing for you Jon at heavyweight versus Stipe is a very interesting match. That's a very big match. The winner of that, whoever it is, versus Francis, we got some really good business, but now you go. Now you tell me. What do you do next? Are you playing checkers? Or are you playing chess? It's tough. Things have changed since Jon stopped. Heavyweight has changed, but so is 205. I'm only asking if you're to look at both of them, specifically for matchups and specifically for drawing ability. For Jon, which division would you rather see him at?